Hi, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Tamborski. Did I say that right, Jennifer?
You did. You did, Mike.
Great, great. I'm Dr. Mike Smith, and today's our business spotlight interview. And I want to introduce Jennifer and let her talk a little bit about our company as I go through and do the survey and interview with you. Go ahead,
Hey,
Jennifer.
hey there. I'm Jennifer Tamborski. I am a digital marketing strategist and the founder of Virtual Marketing Expert. We work with service providers to help them grow their business, increase their revenue, and scale their business through profitable digital marketing strategies.
Great. Thank you for being here today. And I know you're busy like all the other entrepreneurs that we talk to. So I'm going to go through and ask you a series of questions. They're informal and really to learn about you and learn about your business and how you got there. So I always like to ask about the E story, talk about the E myth, right? The E myth is you're working for someone or somewhere or doing something at some point in time, you said, I'm going to go start a business. And they called it an entrepreneurial seizure in the E myth. So when did your entrepreneurial seizure come? And tell us a little about how you started.
So my road was a little windy. I actually started my business roughly 20 years ago. I had my second child, and after he was born, I decided, well, two things. One, we couldn't really afford daycare for two kids.
Hmm.
And secondary to that, I really didn't want to just be a stay-at-home mom. I definitely wanted to stay home with my kids, and I
Right.
wanted to do something additionally. So
Great.
I started my journey as a virtual assistant. Long,
Oh, wow.
windy journey, ended up working for marketers. And at some point had that very seizure of, hey, I'm making these marketers a whole lot of money using
Mhm.
my strategies, using my ideas, using my, background
Right.
and knowledge, and decided to take it out on my own and do for my clients what I was doing for my boss's clients.
Well, in your profession, 20 years, it's been light speed of change in
True
your world,
story.
right?
That
And
is a very true
other
story.
industries don't change as fast as the digital marketing. Well, digital marketing wasn't really, quite a thing, but now it's actually top of mind. Everything else. So tell us. I know you started as a virtual assistant, but have you always had a background in marketing? What made you go to marketing? Is it something you enjoyed, or
No,
just
I actually have a science degree. I have a degree in environmental science. And as I was working for marketers as a virtual assistant and growing my skills and knowledge and all and my understanding of the world, I was actually growing with the internet. Let's be honest. Like the internet's
okay?
only 20-ish years old. Well, let me rephrase that. Social media is only 20-ish years old.
Right.
Um, and so as I was developing those skills and that knowledge, I realized that marketing is a scientific process if you look at it from that perspective. It is all about the scientific method. Test, you have a hypothesis, you test it, you see what the results are, and you make changes based on those results.
Right.
That is how you should look at marketing. It is going to
That's
be much
brilliant.
easier to actually implement for you.
That's a brilliant outlook. That's a brilliant outlook. So thinking about your 20 years, and it's easy for us all as you're older, as probably old as I am, but I've interviewed a couple 19 and 24 years old who own their company, so this is a harder question for them, right? If you had to start from square one in business again, what would you do differently?
So I will say my son is actually 17 starting his own business. So I'm kind of in this same perspective of getting to watch this journey. A couple of things that I think I would have done differently. I would have been bolder, faster. I spent an awful lot of time behind the scenes, behind the backgrounds, being a little bit more bolder and assertive with who you are, what you do, who you serve, and getting yourself out there really does help to accelerate the growth of your business. Um, and I think I would have tried more things and been willing to fail at them. Again, for me, there's no failure, there's only feedback. And yet, it sometimes feels icky when you get that feedback,
Yeah,
but being courageous enough to actually do those things that you might fail at helps you determine what you're good at and what you're not.
right. That's a great way to point it because you hear the different things. If you always succeed, you never learn anything.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I go back to the Edison, right? It was, they did it 99 times and they got it right the 100th time, but it was all learning to get to the 100th time to make it right.
Exactly.
So, do you have anyone that works for you, or do you do any outsourcing of anything that you work with? You have employees?
So I have 2 employees that work with me that help me with the back end. I actually owned a digital marketing agency for about a decade, and decided to shut that down and focus primarily on consulting at
Okay,
this point. So I released most of my employees. I kept 2 employees on my team that kind of helped me keep the back end of things running, things like my
gotcha.
podcast and, my admin stuff, all of those pieces.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've pivoted to a solo entrepreneurship and use contractors as we go along, as for
Right,
whatever might be coming up.
right, to scale it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of the famous things I learned, and I can't remember what seminar I was in 20 some years ago, was we hire employees, but human beings show up. Okay. And so, what are your biggest learnings from being an employer in business?
Yeah. Um, there's a huge difference between delegation and abdication.
Yep.
A lot of time business owners, and I see this with my clients oftentimes, abdicate their things. They want to give it away and not actually delegate. There's a big difference. If you're going to try and do that, if you're going to try and abdicate it, you need to hire someone who is willing to own whatever you are giving them from the bottom up. They need to be the owner of that thing where they can come to you and have problems. The other thing that I really learned is communication is key. Having some kind of project management tool or meetings, some way, especially if you're doing this all virtually, like I was,
Right.
communicating with your team on a regular basis. It doesn't necessarily have to be daily, but it should be at least weekly.
Right. Yeah. One of the courses I took in my background, right, was they used to call the difference between delegating and dumping because, like you said, some people abdicate, but they also dump it and then they come back and go, why didn't you do that correctly? Well, because you never, it was things I learned in the past, right? Prepare, present, practice, and follow through. If you'd have done
Exactly.
those 4 steps, they would have been successful at it. So that's a great way
Exactly.
to put it. Another question around when we look at that, what qualities do you look for in employees? You had a firm, you've had this different background over 20 years. You were hired by different companies too as a VA. So what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a positive and productive work environment?
So for my particular business, it really is about first the personality of the person. Is it going to work within the culture of your business?
Right.
Are they people who will own from start to
Mm.
finish whatever project it is they're working on? Whether you're hiring someone as a full-time, long-term employee or hiring a contractor,
Mhm.
coming at it from that perspective is going to help you create a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Um, so I really look for people who can communicate clearly and that also won't take offense when you give them feedback of what
Gotcha.
happened.
Gotcha. Do you use any tools like Disc or eColors or Myers-Briggs or any of those tools when you're interviewing or after you've hired them to see how they fit on your team?
So I don't. I actually am an NLP master coach. So
Okay.
I tend to use my tools in other aspects along the way. So I listen to how they think, how they speak, how they interact, and how they communicate. Rather than some of the other tools like DISC or Myers Briggs or all of the other things that come along with that.
Gotcha. That's great to learn that you have the neural linguistic programming. I think as we move over time, we're becoming a lot more cognizant of the importance of that and how we
Mhm.
do things. And as a society, I think we're really that's going to come into its own. It's taking a little longer to stick in some places of the world than others. I know that back when I first became a result coach in 2007, results coaching systems at the time. David Rock actually started writing books about NLP and doing those things. So thanks for sharing that. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you've got your friends, your family, and everyone else, right? And they're like, there's conceptions about you owning a business. So what are common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you address them with friends, family, and acquaintances?
So people who don't own a business, their biggest misconception, especially for people like myself and you who work from home, is that we have all of this free time, right? Like
Yeah,
24 hours a day, you can meet me for this or go do that or run my errand or whatever
yeah,
that was. That was something that I actually worked on very hard with my husband and my mother and my sister, is just having them understand that as a business owner, my time isn't unlimited. I have to do XYZ, and there are time frames around these things.
mm,
But I think that's the biggest misconception for a lot of people, is that just because you work from home, you're constantly free. You're available. Your phone can ring and they're expecting you to answer it no matter what's going on in your world.
that is a great point of view. Any other misconceptions that you have from family and friends or acquaintances?
I mean, I think a lot of my family and friends don't really understand what I do. So it's always a misconception there. They don't really understand digital marketing. So I get to educate them on what I do, how I help business owners, create profitable marketing and create, more money in their business. So those are always things. I know my son often, when I was running the agency, we focused primarily on funnels and paid traffic. So paid traffic like Meta, so Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube were our primary leads or our primary traffic sources. And my son would always gripe about the ads coming up on whatever social media platform. And I'm like, hey, that's how mom makes money. That's how we do business in today's society. So, yeah, that's just educating people about those kind of things. One of my favorite misconceptions, which is that you can create $1 million by running one ad, doing one funnel at a time, that you're going to create $1 million overnight. That is not true. And I don't care what guru out there told you that it was. It is not. Business is business. It doesn't matter how you market it. It doesn't matter how you build it. The idea that you can create $1 million business in
Mhm.
1 month or 3 months when you've never done it before
Right.
is a big misconception.
Those are great. I know that sometimes the things that we do that, let's just say you're in the trades or you're a profession nurse, doctor, lawyer, accountant, it becomes very esoteric to people. Like, Really? You make money doing that?" People come that way. Um, I did a couple of these last week, and they said, "Oh yeah," and they always think you have a lot more money than you have because you own a business.
True.
Great. So, so what do you attribute? I know you're a marketing company, obviously, but what do you attribute your growth to? What do you attribute that to?
Realistically, my growth is all around mindset. While I definitely am a marketing company, I can bring in my own leads, all of those kind of things. What really helps you grow your business is what's
Mhm.
between your ears. If you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have the dedication, there's a quote that I forget who said it, but it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get back up.
That's
There
right.
is
That's right.
going to be falls in your business. And as long as you're willing to stand back up and try again, you will be successful.
That's right. Thank you. That's great. You've got some great quotes. I like those. One of the things I would ask you, if you were giving advice to, a younger person, you talked about your son earlier who's starting a business. I think about some of them in these DECA groups. My son was in DECA for years. And when I walk through and think of that, what kind of advice would you give them if they were going to go start a business today? What kind of advice would you give them?
Depending on the business, Get your ass out there networking.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
that's tip number 1. Find a networking referral partner. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily work for every business, and it still works for 99% of
Mhm,
them. There's gonna
mhm,
be that 1% that it doesn't work as effectively for. But if you're especially if your business is locally focused, you're a brick and mortar or you're a handyman or you're, construction or a trade of some kind, networking is going to be your biggest resource. So being willing to get out of your comfort zone and get out there is going to help you grow exponentially.
that's great advice. That's really great advice. So how do you talked a little bit earlier about your family and friends and everyone goes, yeah, you're at home running your own business. You should be able to answer the call anytime that I have, etc. But when you're at home too, you walk by that office and there's always stuff to do and you do those things. I think we've gotten better as a society in doing that, and COVID probably shoved us there. So tell me, how do you balance your personal life with the demands of your business? I know you have children, so you've been able
Yeah.
to do that as a good mom. So tell me how you do that.
So it's definitely been a learning process. I'm not going to lie. When I first started my business, one of the reasons that I pivoted my business when I did was because my daughter, who was 12 at the time, so this is almost a decade ago, came to me and said, "Can I put some time on your calendar?" Right. That was incredibly painful to realize because it wasn't why I built the business to begin with. I built the business so I could be with my family and do. But my business had taken over my life. And I made very specific adjustments throughout. And of course, as your business grows, sometimes you
Mhm.
fall back into those routines. So, one of the reasons I shut down the agency was again, the agency was eating my life. And I was like, this isn't going to work for me. I do not choose to work 60 to 70-hour weeks. That's not why I started a business to begin with. So I have very strict, clear boundaries around when I work. I work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, I don't work. It's family time. After 5 o'clock, it's family time. And so I keep those boundaries when it comes to my clients and when it comes to my own stuff very strictly because I know for myself, if I start to let it creep across, it's gonna eat my whole life.
Right. Those are really good points. I really like that with your daughter. So you put some time on your calendar. You probably wish other people in your family would do that, right? When they're calling you all day long. So that is a good
Sometimes, but
imperative.
I have to say, when your 12-year-old says that, you know you're doing something wrong.
So your business, you obviously go out and you get a small firm there. How do you go out and I know you network and other things, but how do you give webinars? Do you give seminars? How do you tell us a little about your business and what your operating model look like? Anything
So,
you share something that's not, proprietary, but anything you can share with your business model.
absolutely. So, I have a podcast that works for a lot of my content. So, my clients often find me through my podcast. I also do present at various different organizations online. I don't do as much local as I used to. It's
Mhm,
mostly online. I think that was the benefit of COVID. While I was perfectly comfortable working online for the past, 20 years, people were
mhm.
finally coming around to the same reality of, oh, we don't have to go anywhere. So I do presentations, I do webinars. Obviously, as a digital marketer, I also do things like my own funnels and my own ads and that type of thing that kind of helps to grow and scale your business.
Perfect, perfect. That's great. And you're right. What I read in one of the studies was the COVID. I do a lot of studying about transformational in my graduate education, such in my jobs. Is the COVID drove the transformation of virtual working and virtual, etc. It drove it 10 years faster than it would have naturally accumulated over time.
Yeah.
And you're finding a lot of corporations today have these giant. I mean, an example is right here in St. Louis. Express Scripts have these giant buildings, and they're like, everybody gets more stuff done when they're home, working from
Yes,
home than we have when they're at the building.
absolutely.
So it's caused some real estate issues. It's caused some other things. I think Jamie Dimon in the banking business, he's like, you're all coming back to work. And there are metrics that measure everybody else. But yeah, you were a pioneer there in doing it remotely. And now you have just because that adoption happened, more credibility because, oh, everybody works remote today.
Exactly.
So thank you very
Exactly.
much. So one, tell us about tell us your podcast name so everybody can dial into it.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Marketing Matchmaker. It drops every Wednesday. And we dive into marketing. We dive into strategy, mindset, all of the things around business and marketing and really growing and scaling your business.
Right. So I am a member of BNI, and I love BNI. I think it's a wonderful organization. And tell us, a lot of people follow me from that standpoint. And from a referral standpoint, who's your ideal customer first? And then
Yeah.
who is your ideal referral partner?
So my ideal customer are coaches, consultants, service providers who are struggling to scale. They've gotten to that six-figure-ish mark through networking, through all of the heavy lifting, through doing the things, but they know there's more and they're not sure how to get there. That's where I come in. I help them to create profitable digital marketing strategies so we can take them online and really scale their business. My ideal referral partner are generally those people that work in the back end of businesses. Sometimes they're digital marketing agencies. Oftentimes a business will go to an agency first when they're not quite ready for the agency. That's where I come in is when you're not quite ready to hire someone for done for you through maybe you don't have your foundations in place, or maybe you're just not financially ready to invest in a done for you
Right.
services. It's where I come in. The other aspects of people are like those other VAs, the operations managers, sometimes people in that C suite. So the bookkeepers and CFOs and COOs that are in the background that can see the potential of the business and also
Gotcha.
understand they don't have necessarily the pieces in place to get them there.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that. So I don't know if you have any more questions or any more comments before we wrap up here. Any other questions or comments you have?
No, I think the one thing I would say to your audience is if you're not marketing your business, start now. Don't wait for whatever that excuse is that you're waiting
Mhm.
on.
Great. Well, Jennifer, tell us again about your company. Tell us
Mhm.
how we can get a hold of you, and then we'll wrap up from there, okay?
Absolutely. My company is named Virtual Marketing Expert, so it's virtualmarketingexpert.com. You can also find me on Marketing Matchmaker at every podcast location as well as YouTube. Um, and yeah, I am always happy to chat about how we can help your marketing be more profitable in your business.
Thanks again for coming to Business Spotlight, and it was nice meeting you as a neighbor. You're just right down the road from me, and we'll have to connect sometime soon.